Roseanne Trupia. I'm the founder of the Realize Parent Group, and I'd like to thank you all for coming out to the Autism Awareness event of 2013. We'll begin our ceremony this evening with a proclamation from Mayor Tonella, and he will be presenting the proclamation to Daniel Finelli. And I'm going to read a little bit about Daniel Finelli in just a moment. After that, we'll head inside. We'll hear from the Verona Cedar Grove Chorus, and then we'll get to our presentation, Recognizing and Understanding Autism. For those of you who don't know Daniel, if you were not in Cedar Grove last year around this time, he is the reason that we are here today. He's the reason that we have this very lovely monument. Last year, as a Cedar Grove High School junior, Daniel selected Autism Awareness as his Eagle Scout project. He organized a fantastic day which included autism education, information and resources for families who are affected by autism spectrum disorders, and also this monument was dedicated last year. Daniel, you're a tremendous advocate for the people and families affected by autism and for autism awareness, and the residents of Cedar Grove are very fortunate to have you as an outstanding young member of our community. I'd like to present Mayor Tonella and Daniel Finelli.
Thank you, Susan. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored that Suzanne asked me to present this proclamation. It was a year ago, like Suzanne said, that Daniel came to the town council meeting with his presentation to prepare this monument. I thought it was an excellent idea. The more I learn about autism, everybody's gathered here because the importance of it is important. The more you learn about it, better it is for that child, and the better chance that child has to have a more productive life. So, I said to Daniel when I came in here today, his legacy is carrying on, and it's going to carry on as he graduates. And unfortunately, we're going to lose him someday. Probably next year. He says he wants to go to D.C., but it's just I'm real proud of him, and obviously his mom's here today. So I want to present this proclamation to you, Daniel, and to Suzanne, and Realize on behalf of my colleagues on the council. Whereas autism is a pervasive developmental disorder affecting the social, learning, and behavior skills of those affected by it, and whereas as more and more health professionals become proficient in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 88 children nationally and 1 in 49 in New Jersey. And whereas while there is no cure for autism, it is well documented that if individuals with autism receive treatment early in their lives, it is often possible for those individuals to lead significantly improved lives. And whereas individuals with autism often require a lifetime of specialized and community support services to ensure their health and safety and to support their families' resilience as they manage the psychological and financial burdens of autism presents, and whereas Autism New Jersey is spearheading an awareness effort in order to educate parents, professionals, and the general public about autism and its effects. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Peter Tonella, do hereby proclaim April 2013 as National Autism Awareness Month in the Township of Cedar Grove, and urge all employees and residents to participate in our municipality's National Autism Awareness Month activities in order to become better educated on the subject of autism spectrum disorders. This is signed by myself and my colleagues on the council. Thank you, Daniel.
Head inside for the Verona Cedar Grove. Just get one more shot.
Good luck with everything.
In New Jersey, the statistics are 1 in 49 is being diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Boys are 4 times more likely than girls. At the current rate is 1 in 29 boys in New Jersey and 1 in 172 girls in New Jersey. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention has referred to autism as a national public health crisis. The intention of Autism Awareness Initiative is to educate the public so that children do receive an early diagnosis and early intervention. And the other goal of the Autism Awareness Initiative is to promote understanding and acceptance. And the chorus tonight has selected two pieces that fit nicely into the theme of autism awareness. I'd like to introduce the Verona Cedar Grove Chorus Director, Lisa Thompson.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce my accompanist, Paul Villarreal. And the first selection that we have for you this evening is I Am Love. Our next selection is a piece titled Rhythm of Life.
Verona Cedar Grove Chorus at their concert, which is on May 10th, 8 o'clock at the Verona High School auditorium.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
As they file out, I'm going to welcome our presenters on our panel to come up to the front and have seats. We're very fortunate this evening to have professionals who work daily with people who have autism, volunteering their time to help us learn more about autism spectrum disorders. I'll tell you just a little bit about each of them, and our presentation will consist of valuable information from them, along with some clips from the Autism Speaks website, and also another clip. First, we have Jason Campbell over here. He is the owner of Caldwell Pediatric Therapy Center in West Caldwell. Jason is a highly experienced occupational therapist who was named as an outstanding medical service provider by Essex County Magazine in 2009. Welcome, Jason. We also have Kim Kearney, who has worked as a pediatric speech therapist since 2001. Kim has served as the head of the speech therapy department at the First Cerebral Palsy Center in Belleville since 2007. Kim has a private practice, and her areas of specialty include apraxia, feeding therapy, augmentative and alternative communication, and she's a Cedar Grove resident. We have, Chris. We have Chris Pasercia, who is a physical therapist that specializes in pediatrics. He's the director of pediatric physical therapy at Caldwell Pediatric Therapy Center. Chris and his staff specialize in providing physical therapy services to a number of children with developmental disabilities, with a particular focus on children with autism. We have Lauren Basanti, see Lauren, as a board-certified behavior analyst and special educator. Lauren works with children with autism and related developmental disabilities, both in schools and in the home settings. She provides training to teachers, assistants, child study team members, and parents. She's received her master's degree in learning disabilities and her BCBA certification. And we have Shirley Karamuchi Mahalik, who has been teaching in a self-contained middle school class in Clifton Public School System for the past 10 years. She has 2 master's degrees, one in developmental disabilities and the other in curriculum and supervision. She also received the Teacher of Excellence Award in 2010. Shirley has been responsible for the implementation of programs at her school that promote the inclusion of special needs students. So I welcome all of them and thank you for volunteering your time to be with us tonight. And at some point I'll be speaking a little bit as a parent of a child who is on the autism spectrum. I'm also a general education teacher who has experience teaching social studies and improvisational acting. I'm the founder of the Realized Parent Group in Cedar Grove, and we work towards assisting the special education department in programming in Cedar Grove and also create opportunities for our children and our families within Cedar Grove. In addition to hearing from the panel, we'll see some clips from the Autism Speaks website, and that's what we will start with. Our first clip is going to talk a little bit about what autism is and talk about the criteria for diagnosis. The one on the left.
One who knows everything about trains and dinosaurs and gets upset if you ask about anything else. One who may never utter a spoken word, but rather use pictures or signing to be understood. The signs are as varied as the number of children affected.
It's a problem now, more common in the pediatric population than cancer, diabetes, or Down syndrome. It affects all children, boys 4 times more often than girls. There is no known biological marker or medical test to help diagnose it. The cause, unknown. Its signs can be dramatic or, to the untrained eyes, easy to miss. We do know some things. It's not one disorder, rather a complex neurological spectrum that includes autistic disorder, Asperger's syndrome, childhood disintegrative disorder, Rett syndrome, and PDD-NOS. It begins very early in development. Siblings of affected children are at greater risk. There's no magic bullet, no cure, but there is much we can do.
Dinosaur point?
We know, for example, that many children can reach their cognitive and emotional potential if treatment begins early. The faster a physician can screen potentially affected children, the better the long-term prospects for typical development. One thing is certain, with numbers like these, you're going to see more and more worried and confused families. Parents who need their physicians to be trained observers, sources of information, team leaders. That's why physicians, families, and experts from around the country have joined us to help identify characteristic behaviors, to show early warning signs, and to demonstrate that brighter futures can be given to thousands of children if only we take the time to listen, screen, and refer.
This next clip is going to talk a little bit about the criteria for diagnosis.
DSM-4 criteria emphasize having deficits in 3 different areas. They have to show some kind of difficulty in communication. Some children with autism don't talk or don't use language as their primary way of communicating. Other kids with autism talk, but have unusual ways of talking. There are also kids who don't have much imaginative play or have difficulties with imitation.
You like that, Emily?
One of the things that characterizes kids with autism, it has to do with restricted and repetitive behaviors. And that's really a heterogeneous grouping that goes from very simple behaviors like flapping your hands to much more complicated compulsive behaviors or preoccupations. And then the third area, to have a diagnosis of autism, a child has to show very basic deficits in social reciprocity.
Deficits in social reciprocity, the disconnect, the lack of back and forth interaction at the basis of all autism spectrum disorders.
Serena, where's the light? Where's the light? Show me.
Without intervention, that social isolation can grow and produce dramatic signs. Uncontrollable temper tantrums, self-injurious behaviors, echolalia, or failure to respond.
Where's Mommy?
Often there are physical markers, sleeping difficulties, chronic gastrointestinal problems, unusual responses to sound or light.
So again, and this criteria actually is referring to the DSM-4 criteria, which medical professionals use to diagnose. It's changing a little bit actually in May. A new DSM Manual 5 is coming out, and I believe PDD-NOS and Asperger's syndrome are going away, or are not in that manual any longer, and autism spectrum becomes a little bit broader. And there's a new social communication disorder, I believe is what it's called, a new terminology coming out. And it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of difference unless insurance companies kind of get involved and start dictating what they will cover based on the new manual. But I'd like to turn our attention first to our first presenter, Jason Campbell, occupational therapist, who's going to speak to us a little bit about what occupational therapists do.
I thank you guys for having me tonight. First thing I want to do is just explain what occupational therapy is. If you're not familiar with occupational therapy, a lot of times the title can be a little bit misleading. A lot of times people think it has something to do with jobs, and so what does a 2-year-old need a job for? That's not what we do. Occupational therapy initially was started as a therapy to help remediate injuries through meaningful activities, so crafts, hobbies, and those types of things. Over the years, the field has really evolved and changed quite a bit. We're much more science and research based now. Within pediatrics, we look at a lot of different areas. As it relates to autism, almost all the areas that we look at and work on can be affected. Those areas include social skills, sensory processing, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes, fine motor skills, things like being able to cut with scissors, being able to use a pencil to draw, being able to use appropriate grasp patterns to pick up different types of objects, handwriting skills, and for us as OTs, we don't really look at what the child's writing. It's more about the legibility, how they form the letters. Written communication for a lot of our youngsters later on becomes very, very important. Self-help skills is another really important area. It includes dressing skills, self-feeding skills, and those types of things. The main area that tends to come up within the autism spectrum disorder related to OT is sensory processing. What sensory processing is it's the ability to take in information through your senses, organize that information, make interpretations about it, and then formulate an adaptive response. Individuals with autism, a large number of them have significantly impaired sensory processing. You can see behaviors where a child is very hypersensitive to things. So everyday experiences, touch, sounds, those types of things can send a child into a severe behavioral situation that would seem like somebody is torturing them, but it's an everyday experience. For younger children, when that is happening, it can be very confusing, very hard to understand what's going on, especially when you have language and communication limitations that usually go along with this disorder. On the other side, you can have children that we would call our hypo-responsive or under-responsive to sensory input. They tend to seek out a lot of input, a lot of running around, seeking out sensory input from their environment, a strong need to touch and handle everything, a hard time being able to stay focused because they're constantly on the move, hard time winding down and going to sleep, a hard time staying asleep. The sensory issues that can impact a child, who has a diagnosis of autism can be very, very significant and really affect not only the child's life, but the family's quality of life. We have a lot of families who struggle because they don't sleep because their children are up numerous times during the night. They struggle because children, due to decreased body awareness and difficulty with other skills, can have a hard time with learning to use the bathroom appropriately and independently. There's just so much information I could talk for probably most of the evening, but I'm not allowed to do that. So I'm going to stop there. I believe we're going to have time for questions later, correct?
Yep.
But if you have questions, please let me know. I have information here too. You can always call me at any point in time. I'm always available. So
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
There will be time for questions at the end. Our next clip that we're going to see is the clip on the left. And this deals with kind of what typical development looks like and what a child at risk would look like.
And how early can we begin to see this core disconnect in children? Some say as early as 4 months. And with early identification, the key to a child's future, age-specific milestones become critical signposts.
By 4 months of age, babies should be able to be very warm and engaging and very happy and very joyful. So when mommy smiles at little Tommy, who's 4 months old, Tommy typically will go, ah, and lighten up and just be so overjoyed that mommy is smiling at him or daddy is smiling at him. When you see a 4-month-old who's very self-absorbed and looks very despondent, for example, and has this kind of a face, and even when you work with that child, you try to make overtures to the child and staring off into space rather than at you, well, you know that that expectable social, emotional, and cognitive milestone is not happening.
Brett, look! Between 9 and 12 months, a huge shift occurs in the baby's attention system that allows the baby to disengage attention from the object with which they're playing and shift it over to you and then back to the object with which they're playing. So that 3-point gaze is a big thing. It's called joint attention, and some people feel that if you don't develop that you won't develop language and you won't develop typical social cognition. Also at 9 months, there's a shift in the way the babies babble. Their babbling becomes more complex. They introduce more sounds into their babbling in a systematic way. And then around
between 12 and 14 months, we start to get the onset of first real words.
Even if the words are delayed, but the reciprocity is there, I rest easy. But if the language delay is part of a larger problem with the reciprocal use of vocalization and the reciprocal use of emotions and the reciprocal use of motor gestures, then we need to get the child evaluated right away.
Where's Mommy? Oh, there's Mommy. Oh. Robert, where's Mommy? Where's Mommy?
So now we want two-way reciprocal back and forth communication with smiles and frowns and other affect gestures in a continuous flow way. Vocalization is being exchanged, motor gestures being exchanged, but now we want the child to go one step further even and be able to do this in a problem-solving way.
In this example, both children are intrigued by the bubbles and want more. The typical child goes about trying to find out how to get more from the bottle, the source. The child at risk shows no social or communicative attempt to request help, almost content to let the bubbles continue or to do without.
Nice asking.
And at this point, I like to sit. That's fine. Would you like to come?
Hi, how, don't get that close. Again, I'm Kim Kearney, and I'm glad to be here because I love my job, so I'm glad to come here and talk about speech therapy, and also kids with autism spectrum disorders. Everyone, if you've been to a speech therapist, obviously we work on speech, but it's more than just speech. You know, it's social skills, receptive language, expressive language. It's more than just speaking. I want to talk a little bit about functional language because every speech therapist is different, but for good therapy, there are some components to all therapy. Motivation is key with any child you're working with. So you want to work on stuff that's actually functional, and if you have toys and games that the child likes, you have a better chance of getting them engaged, getting them involved. You want to work on words that are toys they like, people in their family, things that are actually meaningful to their environment. So it's not a cookie cutter approach that every child is going to work on the same words. What I try to do and help kids is realize that communication is powerful. A lot of the kids don't have control over anything that's happening to them. So when they realize that, wow, I'm controlling my environment, I'm getting what I want, I'm getting what I need, it encourages them to communicate more. Another thing we talked about in the video, social reciprocity. Obviously, you really have to get down on the child's level. You know, you're not sitting up here and they're on the ground. Every child can be wooed. It's just a matter of finding something that they're engaged in. Simple games, even just rolling a ball back and forth, bringing materials up to your eyes just to get that engagement. Sometimes if they're having a tough time with sensory regulation, maybe it's getting on the floor, giving them sensory input to wake them up or calm them down. Also communicative temptation. So bubbles are a great example. You know, don't anticipate every need. Engineer the environment to give them a reason to communicate. You know, as parents, caregivers, we know what our child wants. Well, they're probably not going to communicate if you just hand them their milk because you know they're crying for it. So it's a balance of getting them to communicate but not frustrating them to the point where now they've had a meltdown because you didn't hand it to them. Therapy should be fun. Play is a child's work. To us, repetition sometimes gets boring, but that's how kids learn. So you really want to work on a small set of things and carry them across different environments with different people instead of just being all over the place with tons of different stuff but never really following through. I also like to give parents carryover in natural activities. If they're calm at bath time, that's a great time to work on stuff. Story time, meal time, natural environments, so you're actually working on stuff that's really functional. And sometimes silence is okay. I know as speech therapists, we love to talk. No one's going to communicate back if you don't even give them a chance. So sometimes count that extra 10 seconds and give them some kind of time to give you a response. One other thing I was going to talk about also was, is that okay? Okay. You know, verbal speech is only one kind of communication. So even though our kids are nonverbal, guess what? They're communicating with us. We don't only talk with speech ourselves. Gestures, you know, facial expressions, pointing, there's way more than just speech to communication. So it really bugs me when people say, oh, they're nonverbal, they don't talk. Well, they still communicate. even their frustration and their behaviors, that's them communicating that they're not happy with the situation. So I think it's important to acknowledge their attempts to communicate and acknowledge or turn the interaction. Even if their babbling sounds close to something, add some meaning to it and go with it. Make that word be a functional word for the child. Every child and every parent, they want to hear their child's voice. A lot of times that can be a viable option for a child, but there's no, total communication is a good thing. So even if it's using pictures, signs, light tech, augmentative device, medium tech, high tech could be an iPad with a voice output program. That's not going to make your child not talk. For a lot of kids, what they understand is much less than what they can say, so you're giving them an outlet, and it means that they're not frustrated. And sometimes that really builds their language, and it can even increase their verbal speech. And the last thing I want to talk about is having a good rapport with your therapist. Your child should feel liked by the speech therapist, in addition to having good rapport makes a huge, huge difference. And you should feel comfortable with, not seeing progress sitting in on the sessions, because ultimately, the parents, caregivers are the ones carrying things over, so it should all be kind of functional, fun stuff. That's it. I'll stop now.
Thank you, Kim. I'd like to go to a clip about what the evaluation and screening process is like for a child and for a family. Vince, you could go to the screening and diagnosis. Right. Correct. And on the right, the little girl with the ponytails. Yeah.
Wow, very good. And inside? Sweet.
4-year-old Mary Ellen is Tom and Kim Hartman's first child.
You need to make more.
She was diagnosed with autism a year ago.
The earliest signs for Mary Ellen were the lack of eye contact, really looking at me and imitating me. That really didn't happen for us.
Since the odds of having a second child with autism are about 1 in 10, the Hartmans worried their younger son Tommy would also be affected.
Tommy, to us, appeared to be a normal child. And all of a sudden, he was just starting to throw temper tantrums that were unbelievable.
He had eye contact, he had that social reciprocity. What he was lacking was a verbal ability to communicate. Can you show me Chip? Show me Chip.
Good job.
He lost the babbling that he had as an infant.
Yeah.
He started vocalizing da on command, just like any little 12-month-old. And all of a sudden, it was just not there.
Look at Mom, Tommy. Look at Mom.
Tommy.
And we saw things like the flapping.
Though he lost his ability to speak, Tommy appeared to be much more social than his sister was at his age. Still, the Hartmans were concerned and decided to have their son evaluated by psychologist Catherine Lord.
The evaluation is your roadmap to that child's strengths and that child's limitations.
What we would look for in a child are deficits in social reciprocity, delays in communication or unusual communication, and the presence of repetitive behaviors or interests. My goal here is just to get a sense of what he's really like.
Dr. Lord begins the evaluation with a parent interview.
When were you first concerned that something might be not quite right about his development?
He will look completely typical to you until he gets excited about something and his emotions will be represented by flapping.
Has Tommy ever been really interested in something unusual?
Throughout flushing, doors opening and closing, spinning top, spinning coin.
What kinds of things is Tommy good at?
When he plays, he just really loves to play.
His social nature of wanting to connect with us, I think, is a huge strength for him. And when he laughs, you'll laugh. Because he's pretty funny.
The next morning, the Hartmans bring Tommy in for his cognitive and social testing. Dr. Lord begins with the Mullen test to assess Tommy's developmental levels compared to typical children. Some of the tasks are a bit frustrating for Tommy. Next, the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule.
I'm going to see if I can imitate him. It's a frog.
Measures social skills and communication.
You do it. You do it. Good job, Rudy. We're going to have a birthday party for the pig. Happy birthday, dear me.
After the first day of testing, Dr. Lord is impressed with some of Tommy's social skills.
I do think that his social behavior is more sophisticated than a lot of kids we see. He's got some really nice beginning gestures and signs that he does use meaningfully. And all of those are things that we don't see in a lot of 2-year-olds with autism.
The next morning, Tommy's evaluation continues, but the testing is wearing on him.
No feet.
Eventually, Tommy calms down and is able to focus.
Yeah, you did it. That's what I need to see. You did it. Did you score your ADOS? Yeah.
After the evaluation, Dr. Lord tabulates Tommy's score
So he had a raw score of 20. Yeah.
and discusses his strengths and weaknesses.
His gross motor skills are behind his fine motor skills.
That afternoon, the Hartmans return for the diagnosis.
Did you feel like we got a good sense of Tommy?
I really did. I thought that you did get a good sense of him.
I do think he has autism. I think socially, though, he's really doing much better than most kids with autism.
Ready? One more time.
The evaluation reveals that Tommy probably doesn't have receptive language, which is the ability to understand spoken words. He's also nonverbal.
Tommy, 1 foot.
The assessment for his sister was different when she was diagnosed. Mary Ellen had more limited social skills, but she was less easily frustrated and more able to focus on tasks than Tommy.
Because he's got quite a severe communication deficit, altogether it means that he has major difficulties. I think that we're going to see really major progress, especially in his nonverbal problem-solving skills. And the fact that he's imitating a little bit makes me hopeful that his expressive language will come even if it's slow.
It's tough to hear that your kid is autistic. On the other hand, he is who he is. He's a nice, great little guy who's got some issues that we need to work with him to overcome so that he can be the best person that he can be.
Introduce physical therapist. Physical therapist who's going to talk a little bit about what a physical therapist does to help children on the spectrum.
Hi guys, I just want to thank Suzanne for the invite to speak to you guys tonight and be a resource. Physical therapists, contrary to what a lot believe, we're not, in pediatrics, not necessarily rehabbing broken bones and sprained ankles. We're working with children who have developmental issues. Who have developmental difficulties and functional impairments. Jason had alluded to some of the fine motor issues addressed in occupational therapy. Physical therapy focuses primarily on gross motor movements. These have a lot to do with our ability to coordinate our body, balance, run, ride a bike, play baseball. A lot of the things that are incorporated socially into a lot of community, home, and school-based activities. I think as an overall view of physical therapy, similar to speech and occupational therapy, there are two different models that we work in. One is the educational model, one is the medical model. The big delineating factor between the two have a lot to do with what the function is. In the educational model for PT in particular, we parallel a lot of the physical education curriculum, child's ability to access their playground, to kick a ball, to catch a ball, amongst many other things that have to do with posture and postural control. In the medical realm, a lot of the physical therapy natured activities are community-based and home-based. So, like I said before, the ability to play t-ball, the ability to play soccer in their community with their peers. Just to give an overview of how PT plays a role across development, from birth through toddler years, early and late grade school, and even into secondary and high school programming. as early as infancy, physical therapists are playing a large role in, particularly with children with autism. From a developmental standpoint, they help children crawl, sit up on their own, walk. A lot of the kids we see who are on the spectrum have difficulties with motor planning. This is the ability of the body, the child, to figure out how to actually perform the task accurately. So we will help them in a lot of capacities to do a lot of the things that I had mentioned before in terms of walking, running, ambulating up and down stairs. As the child develops older, a lot of those functions change based on their needs. As mentioned, being able to apply a lot of the isolated skills later in age into some of those community programs. I will be available later for any questions, answers.
The next clip we'll go to is the last clip from Autism Speaks website, and this is under Parent Reflections on the left, the couple that you see, and this is, you'll see what it is.
If a parent has any concern, I think to poo-poo it or pretend like, oh, you know, they're over-exaggerating or worried. I mean, some of the things that my son did at age 2 were so bizarre like that, I think someone would probably think I'm making them up. You know, in a sense of like hiding underneath this crib. It wasn't peekaboo. I mean, it was definitely bizarre behaviors, or go in other directions. When anyone came into the house, all of a sudden my son would disappear. It was always very lightly taken, thinking, well, he's just playing. Mom's always looking for a problem. And I find that, you know, because I brought it up maybe every time they saw me, they probably thought I was a neurotic mother, in a sense. And then when I was out there, maybe they only saw him for 5 minutes, he looked not so bad. You know, maybe he didn't talk, but they thought, well, maybe he's just, you know, a lot of kids are shy when they come into the doctors.
I would want them to know that maybe things were different 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but we're living through a time that when our son was diagnosed at 3, since then, it is becoming so much more commonplace for other kids to be diagnosed with autism, and we really feel the pain that we didn't maybe get Robbie off to a quick start with his education, and now he's almost 8 and he has trouble speaking, he has some issues. We don't want that for other families, and there is more of a prevalence. I believe there's a groundswell, and statistics are starting to prove it, that if the medical community can just have attention.
Yeah, and if they're not sure themselves, I think that if there's any question, to refer to someone who does know.
And on that topic, I'll speak just for a few moments about, from the parent perspective. We have, and in the Realize group, we have Thursday morning, once a month coffee talks, and where parents gather together. And at our last coffee talk, I think there were 5 or 6 of us there who all have children who are on the autism spectrum. And each one of us was talking about how when we were first concerned about this, and brought this to the attention of our pediatricians, every single one of them said, "You're crazy." In fact, one actually literally said those words to one of the moms, that she was crazy. And obviously that turned out to be inaccurate. So one of the things when my daughter was younger, I remember hearing a lot, trust your gut. The only thing my gut ever tells me is to eat chocolate. So that was not like words of wisdom for me, but there was that overriding concern that was there. And initially the pediatrician who I went to said that he didn't see anything. So my advice to parents is, don't go with your pediatrician, go to a neurologist or a developmental pediatrician. When you go to the appointment, write down your concerns in advance, typed up on a piece of paper, because when your child starts crying, you will not focus on what the issue is. Also bring another adult with you to the appointment so your screaming child can be removed from the situation and you can have a conversation with the doctor. I think that's, the other thing to mention, those of you who are grandparents and have seen many grandchildren, one of the first people who I know who brought it to my attention was my mother, because grandchild number 5 was not the same. So listen to your parents. But if you have concerns about other people in your family, even if those people don't want to hear it, which they won't, still express those concerns, because sometimes it takes people a few thousand times to hear something before they say, oh, maybe I should do something about it. So that's my parental advice. The next clip that we will see is a girl by the name of Carly Fleischman. And I'm not going to say any more about her. You'll see her. Go ahead.
Now, what may be the most remarkable coming out event we've ever seen? A little girl is unable to speak a word or connect to the world around her in any way, or so everyone thought, until she turned 11 and suddenly something remarkable happened. ABC's John McKenzie has the story of a girl breaking out of her own body.
You don't know what it feels like to be me. When you can't sit still because your legs feel like they're on fire, or it feels like 100 ants are crawling up your arms.
How is it that these powerful words came out of this flailing body?
People look at me and assume I am dumb, because I can't talk.
Something extraordinary happened to this 14-year-old who was written off as mentally deficient, something that may help unlock the mysteries of a baffling disorder.
What do I want? I want to be like every other kid, but I can't, because I am Carly.
Born in Toronto, Canada, Carly Fleischman was 2 years old when it became clear she was not keeping up with her twin sister Tara.
When you're told your child is going to be developmentally delayed, that they might achieve the developmental level of a 6-year-old, it's like being kicked in the gut.
When Arthur Fleischman and his wife Tammy learned the diagnosis was autism, they expected the worst, that the twins were headed in different directions.
And how bad did it get for Carly, those first few years?
Awful. Part of her delays prevented her from walking, from sitting up.
It was clear that Carly, like most autistic children, was lost in her own world, perpetually swimming underwater.
And all the doctors would say, you're the parent. You should do as much as you feel you need to do for this kid.
Carly, stand up.
The Fleischmans were on their own. Experts told them that early intervention was critical.
You use your fork.
So ever since Carly was 3, her therapy has been intensive, unrelenting.
This took about 40 to 60 hours a week of one-to-one therapy. She always had about 3 to 4 therapists working with her. And if you're not getting results with one approach, you move on and you try something else.
You didn't give up. You pushed Carly.
And when you look in Carly's eyes, you can see an innate intelligence. So we never gave up. We never gave up.
But if there was intelligence, Carly's ceaseless rocking, flailing arms, and tantrums hid any trace of it. Worse, she couldn't speak. Not a word.
I did not have any expectation that she would have a fluent form of communication.
Dr. Nicole Walton-Allen is a clinical psychologist who led Carly's therapy program.
Her profile was that of a child who was severely autistic and more than likely moderately mentally retarded.
And did you ever think about institutionalizing her?
We had friends saying, you know, you're plugging away, spending thousands of dollars on therapy. You're not really seeing the progress. So, of course, you start thinking about, should she be in a group home?
But you decided against it.
I could never do it. Could never do it. How can you give up your kid?
Despite thousands of hours of therapy over months and years, Carly's progress was excruciatingly slow. That is until one day 3 years ago when Carly was 11. She ran to a computer for the first time, and what happened next was a breakthrough so profound it would finally pierce Carly's silent, secret world.
And she was quite distressed, and she starts to spell H-U-R, and it was like T, hurt. And then a little bit later on, she spells H-E-L, and we kind of pushed her to finish, and she puts P, so she spells help. Afterwards, she sort of got up, went behind the couch, and she threw up.
Barbara Fenton Nash is one of Carly's longtime therapists.
So what did this tell you?
It told us that there was a lot more going on there than we knew, and to us that was a breakthrough moment because we hadn't specifically taught her the words.
And at first we didn't believe it. Knowing this child for 10 years and never seeing her write a thing, of course you're going to be skeptical.
Everyone was, including her other therapists, who were now desperate to see proof. But Carly refused to type, exhibiting the same hysterical behavior that led experts to label her as mentally retarded.
She would strip off her clothes. She would go into the bathroom and she would engage in fecal smearing. So the typing was great, but no one could see it.
They're showing
What was needed was some tough love. If Carly wanted something, she would have to type for it.
First type, and then you get it. Let's go.
Oh, she had to work for it. If she wanted information, if she wanted to go somewhere, She had to type by herself.
Finally, several months later, Carly began to type for others.
She started to realize that by communicating, she had power over her environment.
And what came through her finger, typing one letter at a time, with fluency no one could believe, was astonishing.
I am autistic, but that's not who I am. Take time to know me before you judge me. I am cute, funny, and like to have fun.
Through her torrent of words, Carly began to unravel the mysteries behind her often wild behavior. Like banging her head.
Because if I don't, it feels like my body is going to explode. It's just like when you shake a can of Coke. If I could stop it, I would, but it's not like turning a switch off. I know what is right and wrong, but it's like I have a fight with my brain over it.
Use your words.
And Carly was not shy about expressing her desires and frustrations.
I want to be able to go to school with normal kids, but not have them getting upset or scared if I hit a table or scream. I want something that will put out the fire.
We were also horrified because for years we had spoken in front of her as if she wasn't there.
Now, for the first time, Carly was able to have conversations with her parents.
Can we come right back to Dad?
I want to go on a snowmobile. Can we do it? Will you go on one? I think it would be fun.
So here's your daughter, and finally you get to meet her.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Overwhelming. Overwhelming. I stopped looking at her as a disabled person
You promised. Don't lie to me.
and started looking at her as a sort of sassy, mischievous teenage girl.
I want people to know that no one is telling me what to say, and I don't have a hand up my butt like a puppet.
Carly has been very clear that she sees herself as a normal child, locked in a body that does things that she has no control over.
Side by side with her twin sister Taryn, it would be easy to dismiss Carly as intellectually challenged. That is, until you ask her a question.
Carly, why do autistic kids cover their ears, flap their hands, hum, and rock?
It's a way for us to drown out all sensory input that overloads us all at once. We create output to block out input.
Carly's brain, unlike most people's, is overwhelmed by the senses of sight and sound, taste and smell.
Our brains are wired differently. We take in many sounds and conversations at once. I take over 1,000 pictures of a person's face when I look at them. That's why we have a hard time looking at people.
The one thing she can control is when and where she'll type.
Oh, this is John. This is John.
And usually she needs to be motivated.
Finish up. You're doing great.
When I tried making conversation with Carly, she would not type back.
I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Her finger hovering over the keys for hours, until I brought up my teenage son.
He wants to play football.
Now she's smiling. It's going to be something fun.
Are you embarrassed?
Come on, we want to hear what you have to say.
Yes, I guess he's cute.
You know, 2 years that we've been communicating, and every time she writes something, there's a little bit of that sense of awe. The room resembled a ship's cabin. Its walls
Dear Dad, I love when you read to me, and I love that you believe in me. I know I'm not the easiest kid in the world.
Give me a kiss.
However, you are always there for me, holding my hand and picking me up. I love you.
I'll go through many sleepless nights to hear that. I'll spend every penny we have to hear that.
Was there one writing in particular that left a lump in your throat?
In this writing where she says, "You've never been in my body. I wish for one day you could be in my body."
A year after we first met Carly, she is happier, calmer, more independent.
Come on, let's get this in the pan.
She's even writing a novel.
I think that humankind is just oblivious to things that have been around for many years.
She also has her own internet blog and twitters regularly, answering questions from people all over North America.
I think Carly knows that she now has a voice that can help other kids. Now she looks at herself as someone who can make a mark on the world. And that's got to be life-changing.
What do you hope for Carly now?
I want her to be happy. I want her to have dreams and goals and accomplish those goals in spite of her challenges.
I think the only thing I can say is don't give up. Your inner voice will find its way out. Mine did.
And a lot of what you saw there for when she was younger was something called, a methodology called ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis. And our next presenter is Lauren Vasanti. She is a board-certified behavior analyst, and she'll talk to you a little bit about what that means and what they do.
Hi, thanks for having me. Like Suzanne said, I'm going to talk a little bit about applied behavior analysis, how it relates to children with autism and their families, and also how it is utilized in different settings. So applied behavior analysis is a scientific approach, like all of the therapies that we're talking about today, to understanding behavior and how the environment affects behavior. So ABA techniques are systematically applied to increase important or socially significant behavior. Again, we talked a lot about the functional skills. We are not going to spend our time teaching kids something that is not meaningful to the family or not socially significant or important to them. It's proven that the procedures involved are what changes the behavior, and that's what we have to know. So if we know that the treatment is effective, then we move on and we continue. But if it's not, we need to change it, and that's a lot about what we heard today. So why continue working on something or working with one approach when it is not effective? Remember that it is about the influence of that environment. Teaching is your environment, the curriculum could be the environment, the setting, a person, therapists, communication devices, that's all part of our environment. So if we can change that, modify that, make it functional for the child, we can increase appropriate behavior. So a board-certified behavior analyst is a professional with a background in human services, psychology, education, and additional coursework, training, and experience in applied behavior analysis. Now, ABA, this might be new to some people, but ABA, or applied behavior analysis, is not autism treatment, just as a board-certified behavior analyst is not an autism expert. Sure, that the research has clearly documented the effectiveness of applied behavior analysis methods in education with children with autism especially, and children with other developmental delays. So the scientific approach it is a scientific approach widely used. We hear a lot about the words ABA, or applied behavior analysis, and autism. And then there are many of us, and certainly lots of us, who are BCBAs and work with kids with autism and absolutely love educating those children. I must mention too that ABA has been used to treat lots of other things. So it's been used to treat addicts. It's been used in the workplace to increase staff attendance and staff involvement. Personally, I have used and utilized ABA in my home with my children. I've used it with professionals that I work with, and it is effective with my own husband. It works. A BCBA may work in all different settings, such as private schools, hospitals, homes, public schools, as well as clinics. The professionals that are board-certified behavior analysts, they plan, they direct, they teach, and monitor effective programs for children with autism and related disorders. And the BCBA designs that effective programming, again, to increase socially appropriate behavior, as well as decrease inappropriate behavior. Some of those behaviors that we talk about, we often focus on increasing appropriate behavior. So that could be anything from language responses, social interactions, engagement, and on-task behavior. We often talk about that a lot in public schools. And things that we may decrease or change the topography of would be stereotypic behavior, non-contextual vocalizations, we saw a little bit of that, even toileting accidents. So we want to decrease those and then increase successes, right? So the BCBA in a school setting works closely with the child's study team, the parents, and the teachers to develop the most appropriate teaching environment, and that allows for success for that child. So when the teaching is difficult or challenging, those skills are broken down into very, very small steps and attainable goals until that child can reach the ultimate goal. Data collection is also very important, as in all of our fields. It's an ongoing component that allows for the analysis of change and also determines the function of the behavior. This is important when we are trying to decrease behavior that is not effective. Another important point to make for the BCBA to implement effective and positive, very positive motivational systems and behavior plans, but even more critical for the behavior analyst working as a team member with the child, the parent, the district, and as well as continuing to educate the community on applied behavior analysis and autism. And I would be available for other questions later.
And I'd like to go over to Shirley. And Shirley is a public school teacher equipped in an inclusive environment.
Okay, so as we learned before, autism is on the rise, and I educate students, obviously, but I've taken a lot of time to educate parents and educate the Gen Ed population. I feel it's really important for the people who are interacting with these children to understand what's going on with them. We don't want to set an environment where these children are tolerated. We want them to be included. We want them to have meaningful relationships. And sometimes it's a matter of the children around them and even the adults around them to understand what's going on, because a lot of times we're afraid of what we don't know. So we're not going to approach a child who's throwing a tantrum or who's flapping their arms. We're going to run the other way because we don't understand. And this is especially true in small children. What they don't understand, they're fearing. So they need to know what these behaviors are. For the children who are verbal, I think it's really important for them to own it and be able to express it. You guys know your kids better than I know their kids. This is not going to be for everyone. But even children with other disabilities, I have a student with cerebral palsy, and for her to get up in front of the class and explain cerebral palsy and how it affects her, and that sometimes she can use a walker and other times she'll need a chair, and if she falls on the floor, not to worry, that it just happens sometimes. It gives her power, and it is educating everyone around her, and they're less fearful and they're understanding. We need to give these kids whatever tools necessary. Maybe it's a communication device, and if I'm introducing a student with a communication device in my class, I'm explaining why it is. You know, we took time in the beginning of the year to choose a voice together as a class. And again, this is giving the disabled student power and courage, and it's getting all the kids involved, and they loved it. And once she saw that they're loving her communication device and they're all taking turns entering words on it, she owned it, and she was more apt to use it throughout the year. So again, we're educating not only the affected individual, but also peers, teachers. A lot of times we're just assuming that, you know, an elementary school teacher, a gen ed teacher has experience with this, and they have not. They don't understand. They're not sure, you know, is the child having a behavior issue because they're randomly screaming or making a noise in class. So in my building, we take the time to do workshops with the teachers. We introduce a lot of peer programs where we're bringing in a gen ed student and we're having kind of a buddying system going on, and each time we individually will meet with them and we'll explain what behaviors they can expect to see, what those behaviors mean, and we'll teach them ways to express themselves to that student that's going to gain their attention. Things that that child may like or dislike, variables that may set them off, you know, to stay away from. I really love the friend-to-friend autism demystification model, and they have a website. It's www.friendtofriendsociety.org. And I think this is great if, you know, we're introducing something new in school, or if your child is going to be in an inclusion setting, you may want to talk to the teacher about, you know, setting something like this up in class. So what you would do is you would first model to the gen ed population what kind of behaviors they may expect to see. You know, social communication, what they are, you know, you would show them. Then we would label these behaviors so they know, you know, what a child is stemming and what that means to that child. We would explain the behaviors, kind of like Carly did. She doesn't have control over this. You know, their body's burning or they're unable to control this energy. And then we would normalize the situation. We would give opportunities for the gen ed population to empathize with these kids. And then we would, at that point, teach them appropriate ways to interact together. We do Special Olympics in my building. We have Project Unify, which again pairs gen ed students with special education students, and we go, outside for a walk. We do, we had an Easter egg hunt. We do whatever fun activities we can come up with. It gives everyone a chance to socialize. And I think Carly is a perfect example. There's a lot going on in these children's heads. They want to fit in. They want to reach out and have appropriate social interactions. So it's just all about educating everyone who's around these children and setting reasonable goals. And of course, we're educating the child with autism as well. We're going to teach them how to interact. We're going to teach them to try to make eye contact or wait your turn to talk, or if you want someone's attention, say their name. Things like this for appropriate behaviors, which I'm sure you guys already know. But the key is we need to educate everyone around us so that they can understand, they can have empathy, and they can have those friendships.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions that anyone has for any of the members of the panel? Yep.
I have a question. If the typical child is 4 and the autistic one is 9, and the younger child tries to take over for the older one, saying, I'll do that for so-and-so, as a grandparent, how do I deal with it? I'll say, give so-and-so a chance, give her a chance to do it. Well, I'll do it for her. How do you deal with that?
Good question. Did you hear the question?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone?
I was gonna say it's kind of like what Cheryl Lee said, maybe explaining to the child that, your sister needs to practice her words, give her a moment to respond, and kind of, it's a hard concept for a child to learn, but that she's not helping her by talking for her, and that it's very important to let her.
This is actually doing something, like if we're doing peanut butter crackers,
Right.
and he can do it more easily than she can. So
Right.
I'll do it for her. So it's not actually her, it's an actual activity.
Just like,
I would say too, it sounds like the younger one is a boy.
Yes.
A boy.
So it sounds like he's trying to be the daddy, type figure, and that he wants to be helpful. I would teach him ways to help without actually doing. So, you want to praise him and say, that's so nice that you want to help your sister, and let me show you a way. Why don't we lay the crackers out and then show her one time how you do it, and then let's give her the turn. So, you want to encourage that behavior, but have them do more of a teaching process for the other child. So you demonstrate one cracker and then set it up, and we'll let your sister do the other one.
Okay.
even, any way you can make it into a game, like let's see, if you can do it, how slowly you can do it. Anything to make it fun and different. Sometimes that's enough to take the focus off of just trying to get it done for her because it's quicker.
Right.
Any other questions?
I have one more. I just wanted to know if my granddaughter who's autistic, if she is locked into, let's say, Dora and or Elmo at age 9, as a grandparent, did you allow her to try and move her on, or let her stay there,
The child's 9?
Yeah.
And so you're feeling like the program she's watching is too immature for that age
Right,
level?
it's not age appropriate.
Too,
That's very common, and I think we all see that with the children that we work with. I talked a lot about the social significance of behavior, and we're all talking about having others understand that these children are different, but we also want to educate them and teach them how to fit in with their peers. A lot of times when a child is older and they are still interested in some of those preschool type of programs, it's for the wrong reason. So they're interested in something about those programs that they want to see over and over again, or they like the repetitiveness of that. And it's also practice. So it's been practice for now 5-6 years of watching that. In addition, we know that children with autism have a hard time transitioning or making changes. So again, that's been something that she's been doing for quite a long time. So it is very hard. And I think it is important to eventually teach children with autism to tolerate, learn, access new things, and then to like new things that are more age appropriate. But it can't just be done cold turkey. It has to be done in a very systematic way. And we talk about fading or weaning a child from things like that. So I might take your library of Dora videos and every day slowly maybe take one away. And don't take it away and put it in the closet, because you're more likely to take it out when you know there's a tantrum or there's something really hard. Take it away and donate it to the library or give it to somebody. And then every time you take one away, you want to introduce 2 or 3 new things. And then also think about the things about those preschool movies that the child might like and capitalize on that. So there's a lot of singing more so in preschool shows, so maybe introduce things like Mary Poppins or musicals that are all on DVD for children that are kind of ageless. A lot of Disney things are ageless, and you can really, again, think about the thing that's interesting and then capitalize on that.
I don't know if this would help. My daughter was she still is stuck on Baby Einstein, which she's too old for. And when she outgrows her clothes, she knows there's these 2 little twin friends of mine have 2 little girls who are twins, Amy, Fiona, and Erin. And she likes the fact that she gives her clothes when she gets too big for them to these little girls. So now when she asks me for Baby Einstein, except at Grandma's house, when she asks me for Baby Einstein, I told her we give them to, we got too big, we give them to Fiona and Erin, you know, so the twins. So I don't know if there's any little kids.
Except her brother, she'll pass it down.
Or if there's somebody maybe outside of the family that if you could start with clothes. This is too big, and you know, and then you get the idea of you outgrow things, hand them off to somebody who's younger that they like, and that might give her a good feeling. I don't know if that's helping me. I don't know if that would help her.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yep.
I just want to make a comment because I worked in this field long before any of you were born, so it goes back. And I was on the presidential panel for mental retardation and autism back in the 60s. There's one group in this whole thing that's always forgotten, and it's the siblings.
Yes.
Siblings of special need children need their own persona. I'm also the sister of 2 special needs sisters. In all you're doing for your special need child, don't forget their siblings.
Yeah,
They are special too.
One of the things we actually just started doing in the Realize group is we've started social groups for children who have special needs and their siblings.
Yeah.
To give the siblings the opportunity to meet each other and have some kind of connection with each other, and you know, realizing that they're not alone in their experience.
The only group that ever did any work on this was the state of Connecticut about 30 years ago, and it kind of fell apart. So it was addressed, the need was addressed, and it didn't go anywhere.
There are actually a lot of support groups now, usually within districts, for siblings of children with disabilities, and I think that's definitely helpful. I think our role is really, again, to communicate and teach the public and the environment to be more accepting of the children with disabilities, but then also the entire family who is absolutely affected. But I agree. Sometimes I've been in the home and I've worked more with the sibling than I have with the child on providing positive reinforcement, giving some strategies, but also encouraging them that they're doing the right thing, that it's hard, and always encouraging parents to definitely take that extra time and spend that time with that child too.
Any other questions or comments?
I would just like to thank the public library, Peter Havel, back there, for letting us use the space, and so much more, setting up and helping us out. The Junior Women's Club of Cedar Grove, who ran a story time this afternoon dedicated to autism awareness. I'd also like to thank the Finelli family, Daniel Finelli for starting this last year, the members of Realize, Mayor Tonella for coming out and spending his time, and obviously the members of the panel. And thank you all for coming. We have free blue, oh, and Mr. Kinney, of course, Mr. Kinney as well, Director of Special
I
Services.
steal the mic for a
Go ahead,
minute.
sorry.
I would be remiss without thanking another person. I think we have to do this as part of the community. One individual has really taken a hold of bringing the community together. Not only the community, townspeople, the mayor and the town council, as well as the school district, but the community of parents, and has really spearheaded a number of efforts that people may not know of, such as the Parents' Night Out. Through the Realize Committee, she's founded it and started up, but the Parents' Night Out, the coffee talk, the Family Fun Days, all right, thank you. The Saturday get-togethers at the library, the reading groups that she does and coordinates with the help of the other parents that are involved with the Realize. But she's also, again, the tireless effort of helping bring the curricular aspects of autism awareness during the month of April, helping teachers with curriculum to bring that into the schools, help with the fundraising activities and the efforts during the month of April. So I'd be remiss without thanking and showing our appreciation to Ms. Suzanne Trupia. Now you can end the program.
Thank you very much. And those are lovely roses that I just put on the floor, blue roses. Thank you, Mr. Kinney, and the members of Realize as well, and Denise. There are blue light bulbs that were donated by the Town Council of Cedar Grove. You will receive one on your way out. They're packaged beautifully, but they're not that sturdy, so just be careful with them. This is part of Autism Speaks Light It Up Blue campaign to shine a light on autism for the month of April, so you would change your front porch light to blue. Hopefully you don't have one that's real high. And they don't provide too much light, but they're pretty. So be sure to get one. You can take more than one if you want on your way out, because we have a lot. And thank you for coming.